make it, or those who miss it, or for whom the dog does something strange. And that is now happening. That's it. We're all set. Over to you, Angie.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Lovely to see you. There's some familiar faces there, some dear friends as well on the screen, which is lovely to see. Shame we're not there in person, but that's the way of the world, isn't it, at the moment? Those who haven't met me before, you can see my name's Angie Beeston, but I run Evolution4business, which I've just celebrated my 10th anniversary in business. So hard to believe it's been a decade already. So my background, I've previously worked for Business Links. I've worked very closely with Matt, with Rob, and with many of you on the screen, and Matthew in previous roles. I focus predominantly now on business coaching and mentoring. I also do executive coaching as well and create leadership programs. So I go into organizations around the UK, around the world, and understand their businesses and then put in a leadership program. So some of my courses that I do have been recognized by the ILM, Institute of Leadership Management. So, but one of my huge passions, which I know that some of you do know this, is the small business world. Like many of you, I really enjoy that side because I think we can really help to support people. So when obviously I've attended some of these in the past, and I think it's really important that we start stepping back a bit now and thinking about what we're going to do going forward, because all our heads are all over the place, really. So thank you, Matthew, for inviting me to come along. So it's an absolute pleasure to do that. So probably you, like me, have had a situation where we're in this world now. I'm just going to share my screen. Just 1 second, sorry. Just do that. There we go. So hopefully you'll all be able to see my screen. Thumbs up if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's looking good. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So clearly we've only got 20 minutes today. This is a massive topic, and it's one of those areas that I'm really passionate about, that we try and get this through to people at what we do. We've had challenges over the last 8 months or so. It's hard to believe actually that the first one that you did, Matthew, was back in March. It's quite scary, isn't it, how fast that's gone? I think we've had, even those of us who are very good at change and very able to adapt, have had a lot of challenges, and I would include myself in that. Because we kept thinking that it was going to change, and when's it all going back to normal, whatever normal looks like. We now know that is not the case at all. So really it's time for us to start thinking about what we do to adapt, and actually to build up our resilience again, because we've probably been a bit bashed by this, it has to be said. So I want to share the next slide. I have permission to use this from a wonderful friend of mine. Let me just move the slide on. 1 second. Just have a look at that. Just take a minute just to look at that wonderful image that she created back in March. So my friend Emma Paxton, some of you may know her, she runs Imagistic, which essentially she goes round and in conferences will capture people's thoughts all visually. I've got this printed out on my screen, off my screen in my office, and it's something that has really it's kept me sane sometimes, just looking at that, and it's over to my right on my wall. And I think it's a really important reminder. We still need this now, that we have to be kind, look after each other. And as cheesy as that is, it's absolutely true. And well-being is definitely the space we need to be concentrating on now as we're going into the winter and the darker months. So when we start thinking about mindset, it is a new way now. So we're not going to call it the new norm. It is the new way, and our way that we've got to do things. So when we start thinking about mindsets, our mind is so powerful that we have to be able to keep ourselves in that space to think of problems as not as problems, but as challenges to overcome. Because by switching our headspace into that, we start to make our thinking less stifled. So it allows us to be more creative, to enjoy time to be able to talk to other people, collaborate with other people, and just work on our emotions and our behaviors and what we can do. And I've spent many months, I've been fortunate enough to be able to continue working with many of my clients. Some of them had to pause work because they were in key industries. So like all of us, our works and our business have been affected. But the one thing for me was having to adapt, that video calls, this has become my world now, whereas I've probably before, I guess, avoided it to a degree, but I've really enjoyed, I've quite embraced it actually, and you realize that it isn't quite as frightening as it appears when you start going into this world. And there's some incredibly helpful people around as well, and I know that the NFBP is all the members of that are absolutely brilliant. You know, that there's a lot of really good resource, and people have been incredibly kind and supportive. So our power of language and thought is so important now. We have to try and make ourselves focus on what we can do, not what we can't. So I would call myself, I am an optimist, but I think a realistic optimist at the moment, because we don't know what the world is going to look like as we go forward. So when we start thinking about what we're going to do, I think we need to step back and think about resetting our values. So what's important to us as a business? So what would be really useful is if you can put in the chat just some thoughts about what is important to you. What values are important to you? Can you put something in the chat for me so I can have a look? Just capture a few words. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can see the chat. So I can pull the chat box up. Excellent. So connecting with friends, lack of stress, connection again, authenticity, well-being, yeah, emotional honesty, caring for those less fortunate, integrity, making a bit of a difference in the world. Definitely fresh air and exercise, yes. Kindness and supporting others, ethical. Well, that's good, and Fiona. You hot off the press. So yeah, so family, trust, loyalty, friendship. Permanently available chocolate. I bought some more Toblerone a few hours ago, Phil, so I'm with you on that, sadly. I have to do my Zumba in between, yeah. Giving back and paying forward, yep. Excellent. So some really pertinent points there. Kindness. It goes a long way, doesn't it? I think we've actually, go back to sharing again, we've actually had our eyes opened, I think, in this environment to this as to what is important. Now, because we've only got 20 minutes, I haven't really got time to show you a video, but Simon Sinek, who some of you will be very familiar with, he talks about starting with the why. So what is important to us? And as business owners, I think it's really important that we take that time now, right now, and actually step back and start thinking, why do we actually do what we do? What motivates us? Where's our mojo? What else can we do? Because if we can find out what the why is and what we're enjoying, then it's so much easier, especially with all the noise that's going on around us. Now I'm going to ask you, I'm just going to pull up the next slide and then ask you a question. So we all want that toddler's face of success. I love his face. So what are your biggest achievements? What are you most proud of this year? So I stop sharing a minute, and can you put it in chat for me again? So what are you most proud of? What are the biggest wins you've had this year that have really, where you've surprised yourself, maybe? Rescued a very upset dog. Wow, Sarah. Not giving up. Very good point, Gillian. New depth of resilience. NFBP, being a bit of a community, yeah. 6 remain sane. Not giving up, finding solutions, positivity. Getting to the end of the inflatable at a seawater bath. Jan, I love that. That's a new one. Teaching loads of people to use Zoom. So getting your health back, yeah. So I think there's some fantastic things in there. Keeping going, definitely, Joe. We all need a bit of that, don't we? I think when we step back and actually look at this, we've gone from sort of this space to this space. We've now got an opportunity to just rethink what we have done, because I think what's happened with a lot of businesses, there's some amazing things coming through now, reconnecting with old friends, Zoom and WhatsApp. Yeah, technology is amazing, isn't it? New business purchase and adapting to the maelstrom of COVID. it's given us a chance to think about our real sense of purpose. You know, what are our values now? What is important to us? Where before we may not have even thought about this. Let me go back to my slides again. If you think about how often do we actually celebrate success, I don't think we do. We're forever running on this perpetual wheel like hamsters, running through it, trying to work out what we're going to do next to deal with new regulations, lockdown, whatever it is. So how about we spin it a bit? I want to share something with you that I came across that I've been talking to my clients about, because this is a really powerful thought process. So when we start thinking about the next few months, because we've also, of course, fortunately, we've got Brexit coming as well. So just to add extra insult to injury, really, we've got to deal with quite a lot coming forward again. So what can we actually do to maintain that momentum? So last year, a survey was done out in the Arctic Circle, and it was based around thinking like a Norwegian. So this was done pre-pandemic, so nothing to do with this year. And when they did this study, they were trying to find out and understand how people in the Arctic Circle could cope with the long winter nights and the long winter days where there was very little sunshine. Because like us in lockdown, it's almost a similar environment where we are shut in. So what they found is that because these people could actually adapt their mindsets, they embraced those changes. So forgive the fact there's a lot on that slide, but I wanted to show, I don't normally put that much text on a slide, but I wanted to show you the kind of things that the studies came out. So this is a bit of a synopsis on it. And I'll happily share the link, because this was on it. It was a Guardian article. It was published a while ago, but I have got the link, Matthew, if you want me to send that to you. But essentially, it was that reframing of how we would cope with things. So instead of thinking about what they couldn't do, they were thinking about what they could do. So those of you who may be familiar with hygge, which is the Danish word about well-being and coziness, this is a very similar environment where they would think about what they could do. So for them, it might be going off to hike in the mountains, putting warm clothes on, and just snuggling down, essentially semi-hibernating, I suppose. And it was really interesting that the statement on there about the mindset of, instead of thinking winter's boring and this is terrible and we've got nothing we can do, I hate it, I can't wait for it to change, they alter their mindset every year. So that's how they deal with it. So from a business perspective, if we switch that into our headspace, we could start thinking about what we can do. And one of the things I did at the start of lockdown, first lockdown, once I'd got over probably the initial shock of it all changing again, I created a list of personal things that I wanted to achieve and business things I wanted to achieve. And I've just recently redone my list, because, as we're coming into autumn, winter, or winter now, this is going to be quite important for me. So it's things that I might wanted to try, do, learn, whatever it is. We're all different. But I think it's quite fascinating how they managed to use that mindset to win, to get things done. So if we bring that back into our business environment again, I'll introduce this concept of 17. So a few months ago, some of you may be familiar with Michael Heppel. He's written 6 Sunday Times best-selling books. So he's pretty good at what he does. He's a motivational speaker as well. He works around the world normally. I've got to know him. He's a Geordie guy, lovely guy, and he is incredibly giving. And he set up a pop-up group called 17. And this is where this came from. This has become his 8th book and his first book in 10 years, which is quite staggering. 17, you're probably wondering, what on earth is 17? Well, when he went to have an interview, a meeting with a publisher many years ago, before he was as famous as he is now, he was told, he went to meet Random House Publishing out in New York. And Sir Harold Evans, who sadly recently has died, he was meeting him. So as he walked past Sir Harold's PA, she told him that Michael, that he'd only got 17 minutes with him. And he'd never heard this, and he did question that. And so 17 minutes, yeah, that's what you got, 17 minutes. And apparently this guy, that's how he structures his diary. Everything's done in 17-minute sprints. So this year, which is fast forward to 2020, Michael tested this concept with us as a business Facebook group. And it's been a fascinating journey to learn how to use 17 to get more done. So one of the ways that you can do it is we all procrastinate, don't we? That's what we do, unfortunately. There's things that we don't want to do. So what we would do is set a phone alarm, or Siri or Alexa or whoever else you've got in your house to shout at you, 17 minutes is up. And you would set yourself 17 minutes as a sprint to get on and do this. And we found that the things that we could achieve by doing it were just so powerful. It was quite incredible. And it's you could use it for 17 days to stop procrastinating, 17 days to quit sugar, maybe not chocolate, but sugar, 17-minute sprints. It could be 17 ways to improve a process, write a business plan, update your website. You get the idea. So there's lots of different ways you can use it. So one of the things that I was thinking of for today, really, and it's quite a hot topic, is we probably need to look after ourselves more than ever before. Many of us have teams and people around us. We've got family, friends, children. We've got different people who rely on us. If we don't look after ourselves, then things will tip over. So here is the 17 tips that I wrote for myself on dealing with the new season. So this is about trying to find some lovely ways to control the mind and actually start focusing on some really, really positive things, the stuff you can do. So most of those we can do to a degree. And let's hope that the holiday cottage will be able, people will be able to enjoy that as well, as mentioned earlier. But there'll be things on there that you might think, actually, yeah, I could do that. So I would actively encourage you to create your own list of 17, print it out and put it on your wall. And just when you're having a day where you think, oh my God, I'm sick of the news, I'm sick of this, sick of that, it's all stressful, have a look at your list and it will remind you to go and do something. One of the things that I've done, if you look at point number 5, finding time to seek the daylight and just your working day where you can. Those of us who can do that, I've found that has been absolutely enlightening for me. So what I'll do now is I'll work my diary so that I get time away from Zoom and video calls and the laptop if I'm not doing calls, and I'll go and have a wander and just have a walk. And I live in Southbourne, near to Bournemouth, so I'm not that far away from the beach, so I can go and disappear for an hour, come back completely recharged, and you've got a bit of a spring back in your step. And I don't mind working later because they're darker nights anyway. So all of this will help us to build that resilience and that agility to get more done, because what it will help you to do, this is focusing on the really good stuff, the lovely stuff you can do, and the really great things that will make you feel better, which will allow you to start thinking more positively about the business and what else you might need to do. So can leave you on this with this thought. I'm going to leave you with a challenge. And I would love to know, either now if you want to unmute and tell me, what could your reset look like? What do you want it to look like? How are you going to make it happen, more importantly? And then what's that 17 list going to include? What will it actually have on it? So this way, your reset will be probably about you and the way you're approaching things. It could be the way you redo a business. There'll be lots of different things. I've got clients at the moment who have challenges because they've got to look after themselves and they've also got teams to look after. So they've got there's a dichotomy going on about what they need to do and focus on. So something for you to think about. So if I stop sharing a minute, I'm going to ask you, if I may, just quickly, does anybody want to unmute and just share any of their initial thoughts on what they could do, what you could do to reset either your business or so on?
Angie, I can share. oversharing. Well, communications of a company name, happy days, here we are. But literally from the first lockdown, what I realized was that whereas my husband and business partner, he needed to go for a walk every day, otherwise he'd start going a bit stir crazy. Actually, I only ever needed to put loud music on once a fortnight on the way to the supermarket and back again, and that was enough to kind of set me. But what it meant was, because we were homeschooling and running the business and we were doing everything from home, it meant that I didn't get out very much. So I have tried, and I've probably done it from, or maybe middle of July. I do some exercise every single morning. So as soon as I get up in the morning at 6:30, I do a workout, which is like, well, most people who know me just think that would be insane and completely not me at all. But it meant that actually I was doing some sort of exercise every single day. And it's only like each workout's less than 10 minutes. I mean, it's not like, you know, I'm going for a 6-mile jog or anything like that. So that was the sort of one of my first things. The other thing was that I have put a thing on my computer which basically says I can't do that now, because I think that whole kind of carving some time out for yourself to do either professional stuff or to do personal stuff is really, really hard when you're, like you say, you know, sat in front of a computer the entire time. So yeah, since I've done that, I'm getting better at saying I can do that, but it won't be this week, and trying to sort of manage my time. Not that it was bad in the first one, but it was just that having more time for me personally that wasn't work.
I think that's brilliant though, because I think all the lines have blurred completely, haven't they? In fact, I find, because my office, I'm lucky I've got an office at home, you know, our loft is converted, so I literally walk up the ladder and this is my home now. So that's why, and of course I'm at the top of the house and I'm thinking, well, it's lovely to have an office, but I don't see anybody, and I get a lot of my energy from people. So I think it's so important that we do that, and that's brilliant to hear that, Nikki, that is working for you. And I think we have to find that. I actually I was talking to an optician recently, and he's a bit of a tangent, but stick with me. Video calls. So the amount of screen time we're all having now, she said to me, because I was having, my eyes were a bit dry, so I've got drops now, and she said, how much time are you on the screen? I went, oh, not very much, only about 7 hours a day. I said, maybe 8. And she just looked at me in her mouth, and she went, oh, goodness sake. So she's told me that the amount of people she's seen now who've got issues with dry eye, because we stare quite intently at the camera, we don't tend to blink as much. So it has a massive effect on our eyesight, which some of you may know this, I didn't know it. So for those who don't know it, she taught me the 20-20-20 rule. So every 20 minutes, if possible, you look away for 20 seconds at something 20 meters away. And she said, and blink and relax your eyes and then come back on the screen. And she said it will make a massive difference. So there we go, 20-20-20, so that it can actually help our eyesight a bit, which obviously is precious, because I wear contact lenses as well. So yeah, sometimes I put my glasses on because I need to give my eyes a rest. But you're right, it's things like that, isn't it, that's important. Thank you, Nikki. Anybody else, anything they'd like to share? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, feel free. No? Okay, that's fine. So,
well, I was just going to say, it was more circumstantial than anything else, but I happened to come into the possession of a horse in mid-June.
Okay.
And that forced me to take care of something. So at the beginning of the end of the day, I have to go and see him twice, and, you know, hopefully at some stage actually interact with him other than just feed him and clean up after him. But that forced me to think about, put somebody else first, behind my business, if you like, in front of my business. I know a lot of people have taken on pets over the lockdown as well, and possibly, I think, forcing yourself to put something else first is quite an interesting concept, to make sure that you keep everything else in balance.
It's a very good
point for me anyway.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because I think from a perspective, if you are a nurturing, caring sort of soul, and I would think that probably most of people who are an FBP care about the people, otherwise you wouldn't be in this collaborative environment. And I think you're absolutely spot on. I've found one thing I do postcards of kindness. So the charity that was set up, they send cards to care homes around the world, and it's for residents who don't have family or whatever, you just send it. There's no GDPR problem because it goes just to the residents. So, and they've set up a Christmas card one now because people are so isolated. And it's a lovely thing to do because there's a hashtag. So you put that on the envelope and whiz it off and off it goes. So, you know, it's just all these little things. So that's brilliant, like with the horse, as you say, that gives you something else to focus on and gives your brain a rest from the business as well. So that's a good thing. Thank you for that, Vicky. Jane.
I think we're all here kind of agreeing with an awful lot of this, and we're all finding our ways to manage in our different ways, because we all we respond to different things and we need different things. The issue that I think certainly I have, and I don't know whether others do as well, and it would be very interesting to get some tips on this, is when you're working with other people and they are very stressed and finding it incredibly challenging for lots and lots of reasons. If they it's hard. I'm going to try and explain this. We can see what we're talking about. We want to help ourselves. It's very hard to get through to somebody who is very, very stressed and is not wanting, or it seems, to try and reduce that stress.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it is very much it's the not seeing the wood for the trees, isn't it? It's that kind of environment. And so I think when people are in that space, and I work with some clients who've gone into that space, and I'm trying to sort of gently pull them back. And in fact, my coaching and mentoring has had to change. Instead of it being more strategic, it's had to be less strategic and more about the well-being. And we've gone off to talk about how we can get through this. So for me, what I've actually said to some of them is to start capturing how they feel and putting it down onto paper, not even on the computer, but on paper, and getting them to draw mind maps and visualize things and sending them off to do that kind of thing, and a brain dump, essentially, everything that's causing them issue.
It's hard though. It's hard though if you can't get to that point where they actually acknowledge that there is something they can do about it.
That's very true, because you'll always have that yes but. And I think if people are in that space, it's a difficult one to get them to address it, because they're probably not quite right in that space to be able to take either advice or suggestions. But often I will say to people, if they are in that space, is to take it away and go and think about what they would like to do. So let's forget about what's happening. What would you like to do?
Well, the only thing I've managed to think of so far is to buy some reflexology vouchers for them.
Actually, that's a really good idea, to be honest. That's a really good idea. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's the horse to water. It really is that analogy where you can't make people drink. If they don't want to be part of it, then it's very difficult to get them to accept it. But I think sometimes it's persevering with people. I've got, what I've done with some of my clients is I've dropped them cards. So I've got these, this isn't really an appropriate one, but we'll go with it. It's too glam to give a damn, but that's just for me to make me smile. But anyway, shine bright like a diamond. So I got some of these cards and I sent them off to clients just to make them smile, because I happen to have home addresses, because most of them are working at home now rather than the office. And I've just sent little reminders to people. And it goes back to what you were saying, Vicky, about trying to help someone else and just knowing that you're there. And then at some point you will get that glimmer of a conversation to be able to open it up. But quite often it's difficult if you keep going back at them. And I've got clients who is like that. I have to be careful that I don't start looking like I'm pushing my thoughts onto them, because that's clearly not what I'm there for. So yeah, I think we have to be mindful of that. They have to be in that accepting space, at least semi-accepting space, to be able to take some of that thought process from us. But thank you. It's a very good point, Jane. Very good point. Any other thoughts? Because I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to go back up. So I'm just going to put that back on. So just to remind you the question. So this is for you to take away and do whatever you would like to do with, but just something to reflect on. So what could your reset look like? What do you want it to look like? How are you going to make it happen? And what's your 17 list going to include if you haven't already got one? Thank you. That's me.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Angie. Your contact details, I think, are in the chat right at the top.
Yeah.
So people can get in touch with you, but no, really appreciate your contribution today. We have about 6 minutes left. So if anyone else has any thoughts around this, obviously this important discussion, and it's an interesting angle on business support, that whereas next week we got some very important HR tips, and tomorrow's on marketing, business support, it's all in the word support, isn't it? And this is what we're helping people with today. So any other contributions or thoughts? We've got time for a couple more. Nikki, you were there.
And I was just going to ask Angie, your 17 list, I could write a list that's the size of a door of things like that. So I just wondered, did you do it in 17 minutes? Or how long would you say you would need to do that so that actually it's effective, rather than having just a list of stuff that you never ever get to and it's completely impractical?
When I wrote it, it did take me longer than 17 minutes. I will say that. I think I did 2 sprints of 17, but I did it in slightly less. But it took me a bit longer, because when I was writing it, I was trying to write it for exactly that reason, from a realistic perspective, which is why it had on things like, I'm looking over because I've got it printed somewhere, so I'm not looking up to look at my screen, but things like being active, I thought, well, actually, that's quite realistic. I can do that. And like you, I've been doing a Zumba class in the kitchen every morning, so on my own, but it's kept me going a bit. So, but things like catching up with loved ones, I thought, well, actually, that's something that is attainable. So I've tried to write this list less. It's not a massive stretch, because it isn't meant to be a stretch. This is supposed to be your lovely comfort blanket that sits there and wraps you almost, and allows you to enjoy some downtime, some headspace, and just almost permission. As business owners, how often do we give ourselves permission to do that? So yeah, try and write something that is a bit more holistic, for want of a better word, so that you can do them, rather than thinking, I'm going to run a marathon in April, because that's a completely different thing. This is more about making you feel better and good. So yeah, but try it in 17 minutes, Nick. I would love to know. I'm sure.
I'm going to see if I can read yours in 17 minutes. I might just steal it, because so far everything on there, I'm like, yeah.
I don't mind that at all. Not a problem. Not a problem.
There is a mention of chocolate on there, though. I might have to do that.
I know, I didn't dare. I thought that was really bad. I've kept that quiet. Well, it's recording, but I've kept that quiet. My Toblerone addiction. That's how I have to do my Zumba.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
Okay, any last point from anyone before we wrap up?
I've just got kind of 2 really. One is, I think it's what you said, Nikki, about what you've got on your screen. It's a similar thing of me having a bit of a realization. I think somebody, might have even been you, Angie, somebody said to me, probably someone as amazing as Angie, said to me, take the power back. Actually, I was giving a lot of power away, and feeling a bit out of control, and actually we've got the power, and so I'm thinking about that kind of every day, just thinking, what am I in control of? So to your point, Nikki, actually, can this conversation wait now until the new year? How urgent is it? Is it urgent for them? Is it urgent for me, kind of thing? And the other one is that digital detox. I think something I've just written down is, maybe a day a week, because I can find that is very all consuming. When it's your PR machine, when it's your who you are, you want to show up, you want to also support everybody else that's posting, because you know how important it is. I just find myself going into this kind of whirlpool of craziness. So I think actually giving yourself permission to kind of switch that off as well. I try to do like the evenings, but I think maybe a day a week as well would be a really good one. So thank you for that.
No, that's excellent. Then it's a very good point. And in fact, I'm actually going to return the favour, Joe, because I went to one of Joe's Connect Up sessions recently, and that was excellent, because it was a really safe space for business owners to chat about specific things as well. So not to detract from this, Matthew, at all, but it was a very different environment, but really interesting process. So anyone who needs a bit of help with that, I would highly recommend Joe and what she did, because it was the first time I'd been to one. It was really good. And I think that's the thing to think about, is taking back the power. And Joe's just been saying is that we need to surround ourselves with positive vibes as well, not necessarily always positive people, because that's too much at the moment, but I think let's be realistic. you know, I think we need to be around people who are supportive, you know, and actually help us rather than the mood hoovers. We don't need that right now, do we? So we need good people around us like you lovely lot. So, you know, I think that's really important.
Great, Angie, perfect. And you've left us with 17 seconds to 4 o'clock. So we shall wrap up, but thank you so much for your contribution, for brightening our day with your smile and your pink, because, you know, it's what everyone needs right now.
And I'll take a photograph of everyone and I'll put it on LinkedIn. You know, I'm a massive LinkedIn fan.
Yeah, you go for it. Tomorrow we have the business briefings have returned, and the business support hour is what you know so well, and thank you for supporting that. The business briefings have returned, where there's a bit more input, a bit longer than 17 minutes. So tomorrow Sam Sutton's taking us into the how and why of marketing, and then the following week we have another presentation on the 6 steps of marketing clarity. So have a look at those on the NFBP events page. There are only 4 people booked for tomorrow, which is great because they're going to get a huge amount out of it. But if there were 5 or 6, that would be nice as well. So if you've got time to join Sam next tomorrow, and I'll be there, and we'll explore some of the ways of marketing ourselves out of this crisis, because Jane will be very happy to hear me say you should still be spending on marketing, because it's really very important to do that and to look forward. So it is now 4 o'clock. If you can't join us tomorrow, certainly do join us next week when Heidi will return to explain the complete sort of idiot's guide to furlough, and what to do about yourself or your staff, and all of those HR top tips. And Karen's also available to help with any of that. But it seemed a good time to bring Heidi back. She did a session for us back in the summer as well on this. So keep in touch with the program. Please do come along whenever you can. Really appreciate it. I will stop the recording. I will just have a quick afterword with Angie about how we're going to post that. But everyone, thank you so much.
Lovely to see you all. Take care.